this is this morning. Getting ready to leave Eagle Plains. And the problem is my commo is either disconnected or the battery in the powered microphone has gone away. It ran the whole ride from Dawson City up to Eagle Plains through the storm and all that entailed. So I suspect it died. You'll be able to hear some of my comments, but very, very lightly. So I've hooked up with 3 Canadians that I mentioned in the last video coming up the Dawson Highway. Great guys. Ride like I do, out to enjoy a good hard ride. And the night before had invited me to go ahead and ride with them and stay with them. And at Eagle Plains, everything was in turmoil. The road above Eagle Plains had actually been closed because of the rain. They had a guy that had to get helicoptered out from injuries. I believe he was on a KLR, but I'm not sure. They were a group of riders coming back from Inuvik, and he went around a turn and went off the road and busted himself up in a couple of ways. The night at Eagle Plains turned out actually to be pretty good. When we got there, there were no rooms, so we were trying to figure out where we were going to camp, what we were going to do. It was still raining off and on and very, very muddy everywhere. The owners of the place offered us the use of their power washer in the backside of the garage, and we were able to wash the bikes off and our boots and a few other things, since we were covered in mud. Eagle Plains has some rooms, 12 to 15 rooms I believe it is, a campground which isn't much of anything, then a large garage with gasoline facilities or fuel facilities, and they do a lot of work on tires because of the shale or the type of rock that's used on that road. It just eats tires. As we hung around at Eagle Plains, we ended up getting something to eat. They have a bar, restaurant, actually very good food, real good salad bar for being out in the middle of nowhere. And the pilot for, actually I can't remember what he actually was, but anyway, the helicopter pilot had called in and wasn't going to be able to come up because of inclement weather, and so we ended up actually getting his room. So the 4 of us split that room, which turned out great because we were able to get good sleep, showers, and clean up some stuff. My problem is I forgot to even look at my battery, if I even remembered at all, on the microphone. So my audio now is kind of defunct. So we're leaving Eagle Plains at about 8 o'clock in the morning and getting on the road. It is still somewhat muddy, but not bad. It packs down and dries fairly quickly. And it's the 4 of us, another Africa Twin, and KTM Orange and KTM White. Both, what are those things, 950s or something of that sort, around 2006 900 series. adventure bikes, and they worked really well up this road. The morning is crisp. It has started to get cold. It's clear, which is good. Somewhat tacky, but slippery in spots. And on the Africa Twin, I definitely had to pay attention. I think with the rake and trail, it's a little bit more skiddy on this kind of stuff. The higher speed type driving. We're on our way right now to the Northwest Territories sign and the Arctic Circle. And then from there to Inuvik. As I mentioned in my last video, my rain gear had fallen off somewhere between Dawson City and the point of where I went to get it to put it on. Luckily, I had a set of Frog Togs, just cheapo $12 or $13 Frog Togs that I had picked up in Texas and carried with me as kind of a spare set, so I wore those in the rain, and surprisingly they were a little bit ripped up, but they lasted the whole trip. A lot more wind, a lot more rain, and they're big and baggy, but they also help to keep me a little bit warmer because the temperatures from here out will get cold, 49 degrees at times. It's gorgeous out there, but the train does get a bit on the monotonous side. Once you get out of Inuvik, it's pretty bland. And I was hoping to see something in the way of like maybe a herd of caribou or elk or something of that sort, but we did not see anything. There goes the KTM White. Him and KTM Orange both haul ass. They're doing 75, 80 miles an hour up this road all the time. And of course, they talk about, get on top of it, and it is more comfortable riding. But I just wasn't that familiar with that kind of road or that kind of dirt. And come to find out, I hadn't thought about it, but when I set my suspension up, I set it up for the kind of terrain and the little bit of single track that I did on the Africa Twin at my house, which is very tight. And I'd moved the forks up in the triple clamps, and it would have helped me a whole bunch if I had taken those forks and moved them back down and put them maybe equal with the top of the triple clamp. Would have given me a bit more trail, and I could have handled that stuff a little better, because my front end was real twitchy. It got scary at a couple of points to where it just felt like it wanted to rip out of my hands. But eventually I would push it up into the high 60s and run there. It's capable of doing it, and the road was good enough to do it, especially now. As it gets drier, and as we head out of Inuvik up to Tuk, it'll get a lot deeper and more loose. If it had been somewhat warmer, I would have been standing up, and that would have helped the feeling of the bike a whole bunch. But I was freezing. Even with my my heated gear on and on full blast, I was still cold because I had a mesh jacket. I didn't bring my other jacket because it was 96 degrees when I left my house, and it was that way for 3 days. And then got cold for a day or two, and then back up into the high 90s until I left Washington and crossed over the border into Canada. So the mesh jacket had been working really well. But up here, the mesh jacket wasn't even stopping the air, and so it was going right through me. The rain gear helped out a lot, but it's so baggy and floppy that it was annoying in a way. But standing up would have made the ride on that loose terrain a lot more enjoyable, a lot more controllable. The road is kept in pretty good condition, and of course there's a lot of travel on it, a lot more than you would think. A lot of big trucks, because most everything up here has to get brought in by truck. So the little towns that are along the way, and Inuvik and Tuk, everything gets delivered by truck, or almost everything. And they're constantly out working on them. Although that got a little bit more hairy too when you have a road that the trucks have tamped down nice. Even though there's holes here and there, you kind of have a hard surface to run on, or at least a firm surface. And they come out and cut it, and then all of a sudden it gets treacherous because it gets deep. So those sections where they're working on it can be a little tricky. The big thing is staying off the shoulders of the road, because the shoulder is where all that gravel gathers, and it'll be 6 to 8 inches deep. So if you pull off, you got to be careful. Part of my problem too is being short-legged. I can't just stop anywhere I want and put my foot down and get off the bike. It can leave me in a position where I've got to find the exact spot where I can lean the bike over. And I also had the center stand, or excuse me, not the center stand, but the side stand stretched out. It's adjustable, and I had it stretched out to keep the bike more upright, because with the weight I had on it, it could get hard to lift it off onto center to get going. So I had to find where I could actually put the side stand down, and the bike would lean over and not want to be high-sided. You can see how the terrain or the road itself changes, and you see those shiny spots of where it's a little bit slicker. Stuff's kind of like riding on wet cobblestone. Yet it ain't packed down. So this is Louisiana Long. I will keep the conversation going as we go along here. I have to check the rest of the videos to see whether I've got audio or not. But if not, I'll keep you updated as to what's happening at the time. And we're going to make a couple stops up the road. So the next video, I believe, is the Northwest Territories. Thanks for watching. Y'all ride free, ride safe, ride forever.